DreamWorks Animation's latest film, The Bad Guys, has been called Lupin-esque by some animation fans thanks to its art style and animation being reminiscent of the anime Lupin III. But we here at Wicked Binge are reminded of another movie, 2010's Megamind. With both films being from DreamWorks and having so-called villain protagonists, you can't really blame anyone for comparing the two.
Ready the death ray, minion.
Death ray readying.
Today we're going to look at how these movies are similar, how they're different, and the pros and cons of each of them. I'm Keith Finosi with Wicked Binge, and we're here to ask, how does The Bad Guys compare to Megamind? Obviously, major spoilers ahead for both films. Starting out this comparison, we want to look at each film's genre and whether the film succeeds in properly portraying that genre, with Megamind being a superhero movie and The Bad Guys being a heist movie. Of course, it wouldn't be a DreamWorks movie if there wasn't a slight subversion. In the case of both, there's a bit of a twist in the formula of the genre. With Megamind, the story is told from the villain's perspective, and the roles of hero and villain get swapped around a few times between Megamind, Metro Man, and Hal/Titan. Outside of that, though, the other superhero aspects of the film are played pretty straight, albeit with a bit of comedy still thrown in from time to time. It feels like a legitimate origin story for a new hero, with its sharp writing and clever references to other mainstream superhero movies being what makes it appealing to audience members.
No matter what side you're on, you're always the loser.
As for The Bad Guys, the heist movie aspects of it are pretty spot on. We get to see the heist plans, how the heist plays out, the team needing to improvise when things go wrong, all the good stuff. However, when looking at the film overall, it differs from its contemporaries in a major way. With most heist movies like Ocean's 11, while there may still be some personal drama with the characters, the big heist still acts as both the plot's goal and climax. In The Bad Guys, these heists act more as turning points for the plot, and in the third act, it shifts into being more of a standard action movie. Not to say that this is a bad thing or makes the film any less enjoyable, it just prevents it from feeling like a true heist movie in some ways. So if you're looking for a more accurate genre film, Megamind is probably the way to go. Then again, the twists that The Bad Guys pulls in its final scene are pretty amazing and certainly a heist movie staple, so the latter film still has plenty to offer there. Moving on, we want to take a look at each film's main characters, with those being Megamind and Mr. Wolf. Yes, The Bad Guys is technically an ensemble piece, but Wolf is still seen as the film's main focus and driving force. For both characters, they understand how the world sees them, and while they may act like they're happy with their roles as villains, they secretly wish for acceptance and end up finding a reason to become good. Both characters can be pretty relatable too in their own ways. With Megamind, he understands that he's essentially playing a part in a story, never truly believing that he could ever kill Metro Man until it actually happens. From there, Megamind does what he can to get back to the status quo, not knowing what his purpose is without a hero to fight. Fans of this film praise it for having such an interesting story of self-reflection, while still being hilarious. Because he was forced into a villain role, Megamind struggles with believing that he can genuinely be good, and for the most part only does good for Roxanne's sake. Even in the climax of the film, Megamind gives up on himself and needs Roxanne's encouragement before he can try. And even then, he feels that he has to disguise himself, only to realize that it's his so-called villainous traits and gadgets that make him a great hero. To see Megamind finally get that win in the end, we're not gonna lie, it feels not only deserved, but incredibly satisfying. You just gotta love the callbacks.
Thing about bad guys, they always lose.
Getting back to The Bad Guys, ironically enough, Wolf seems to have an opposite character arc that's more personally driven than externally driven. Although Wolf is the one who decides to pretend to go good as a means to an end, it really doesn't take long for him to actually want to be good. Like Megamind, it does take a bit of support from another person, that being Diane, but in this case, it's more just giving advice and less life or death scenario. Wolf not only has a bit more time to reflect on what the personal impact of going good would be, but he's also more hopeful in himself that he can go good, unlike Megamind, who struggled with believing in himself until the very end. Though he may care about Diane, Wolf doesn't necessarily go good for his love interest like Megamind does, but because it genuinely feels good to him, enough for him to at least try, even if there is a chance that society may still turn its back on him. That's not to say Wolf's story doesn't have conflict. In fact, you could argue that Wolf has much more to lose, given how unsure the rest of the gang is that they can follow his lead in becoming good. But that actually leads us into the next subject that we'd like to discuss: each film's supporting cast, namely its best friend and love interest characters. Outside of the film's big bad, Mr. Snake probably provides the biggest personal conflict in The Bad Guys. Whether it's out of stubbornness or his own trauma, it takes him nearly the entire film to realize that it's even possible for him to be more than just a sneaky, scary snake. Even then, we see that the main driving force for Snake's redemption ends up being his friends and the care he still holds for them. There's also his fears of being abandoned by Wolf should his friends succeed at becoming good. Honestly, both the drama and friendship between Wolf and Snake end up being not only among the most engaging parts of the film, but also make up one of the most enjoyable parts. You truly see how much they care about each other, even when it seems like their relationship is falling apart. But what about Megamind's best friend? For him and Minion, things don't get quite as dramatic. During their big breakup fight, Minion is shown to be horrified by the idea of Megamind not wanting to be a bad guy anymore, and Megamind gets frustrated and tells Minion that he doesn't need him anymore.
Code, I don't need you.
It's an effective, if a bit cliche, scene, but we can't really say that it reaches the same emotional heights as Wolf and Snake. Minion's dismissal of Megamind trying to go good is really less about his own feelings and more about him trying to protect his boss, understanding that Megamind's lies can't go on forever and not wanting to see him get hurt. So when Minion returns to Megamind's side in the film's climax, while it's admittedly satisfying and heartwarming, it's more about Megamind understanding his mistakes than Minion's character having any sort of arc. But hey, that's okay. We're not saying that Minion has to be the same type of character as Snake, though we will say that we find Snake's arc slightly more satisfying. One thing we do unfortunately have to knock Megamind down for is its love interest, Roxanne. To be clear, we aren't saying that Roxanne isn't a good character. She's fun, caring, adds a lot of heart to the film, and bounces off Megamind well. Who doesn't love their banter when he first kidnaps her? But for a film that seems to pride itself on subverting the usual roles of its characters and emphasizing how a person can be much more than how society views them, Roxanne never really steps out of her damsel in distress role.
I knew you'd come back.
Well, that made one of us.
She's not useless, but we never see her getting the chance to fight nor save the day at all. Even after the hard work she did, she's still someone that Megamind has to save during the climax, several times in fact. This sours both the character and the movie slightly, if only because of the missed potential. Diane, meanwhile, seems to have much more agency. We'll admit she does sometimes have some too perfect or even some girl power vibes, but you can't deny that she's pretty cool. You get the sense that she has her own character, her own history, and her own goals outside of her relationship with Wolf and the rest of the bad guys. She gets to help save the day, and she gets to stand on equal footing with the rest of the cast without completely overshadowing the film's main story. We also have to point out how much more satisfying her and Wolf's romantic subplot is. Not only do they understand each other, care about each other, and work together well, but you never get the sense that Wolf is only trying to be good for her sake. Like we said before, he has his own reasons for being good. Megamind had his own reasons too, yeah, but winning Roxanne's affections was one of the main reasons. There's still talk about getting the girl, despite Megamind showing that he respects Roxanne as her own person when she first rejects him. But again, the conflict that they have adds more to Megamind's arc and story than Roxanne's, which can be a bit disappointing. Still, like with Minion and Snake, it becomes more a case of which do you prefer than which is better, as both of these ladies are still pretty great in their own rights. Finally, we want to take a look at how each film portrays its themes, namely the theme of societal expectations. In both films, we hear characters talk about how they're the villains of the story, and how because people automatically saw them as bad people, they felt like there was no point in trying to be better. With Megamind, we see that he had the perspective of the black sheep or the bad student before he took up the mantle of villain in his and Metro Man's little rivalry. As for the bad guys, they took a page out of Zootopia and used anthropomorphic animals as a way to portray how stereotypes can impact someone. Both perspectives are not only relatable, but are likely experienced in real life. life. The Bad Guys also has some of the former's perspective in it through Snake's character, who explains through a story how his experiences as a kid shaped the person he is in the present. Both films also show the power and agency that come from fighting against these societal expectations. For Megamind, he was not only able to be the hero in the end, but he was able to do it without changing anything about himself. When used in a different context, his villainous aspects became heroic. Megamind also had the chance to be successful, something he never had the chance to be as the villain because it was all part of the routine.
Being good has its perks.
This is another way the film shows why it's worth fighting against expectations, no matter how hard that may be. The Bad Guys also does this, with Wolf pointing out how he doesn't just want to be good because it feels good, but because he's hoping to find a better life for him and his friends. After a spectacular final action scene, the Bad Guys are seen saving the day, but they also get arrested, acknowledging that they have to take responsibility for their previous crimes. When they get out early for good behavior, while they may still have each other as well as Diane's support, that's kind of all they have, given that they were forced to return all their stolen stuff. In a way, it's more realistic, showing that being good isn't always easy. Society may be giving the Bad Guys more of a chance, but it's going to take a lot of honest work to get back to the luxuries and standard of living that they were able to have as criminals. Again, it's realistic and in turn makes their decision to remain good, not because of a hero title or admiration, but for their own personal satisfaction, all the more powerful. In conclusion, Megamind and the Bad Guys are similar stories of redemption and fighting against the expectations of society and the roles that society may force upon people, but they're both told in pretty different ways. Megamind focuses on a grander scale in some ways, while Bad Guys focuses more in on personal motivations. Both have a ton of action, a ton of laughs, and a ton of heart, not to mention plenty of good lessons to take away from them. Though they may succeed in different ways, it was obvious that DreamWorks was able to make lightning strike twice when it came to their villain protagonist movies. And honestly, that just makes us all the more excited for their next project, and especially their next bad guy turned good guy one. But let us know in the comments section what you guys think, and tell us what we should cover next. Remember to hit that notification bell and binge more of our videos. But most importantly, stay wicked,